What's going on, guys? PXCam back in with a brand new video. We are doing again daily race C, as I thought that I'd be smart enough to retry this race and hopefully get a better finish than what we did earlier in the week, as I've been trying to get the time as low as possible, but this is as low as I was able to get it to. And for this race, we are going to be starting in 6th place, so not too shabby. We got a couple of fast guys ahead of us and a couple of fast guys behind us, so we're just going to have to be on our top of our toes, be very, very aggressive to try to get through the field and just avoid the chicane of death and avoid any mistakes that can lead us into finishing in a worse position than where we are starting. Now, before we jump into the race, we're trying to reach the goal of 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year, so if you guys really enjoy the content, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video, as it really helps out the channel when you guys do so. Anyways, that's enough promoting myself. Let's jump straight into the race. So jumping up into the lineup, you can see again we are starting in 6th place, as we were able to get a 146.7 on our race lap, or a qualifying lap, and we are starting again behind a Brazilian, a Canadian, actually a couple of Brazilians and a couple of Americans. So jumping into the line now, we are on our way for the race, as we are right behind the McLaren as we head into turn number 1 now, going down into this little kink right here as we head into turn number 2. Braking as early as we can to try to avoid making any type of contact with the McLaren ahead of us. We actually get a really good exit here, as we are actually catching up to the McLaren here as we come down to the straightaway. That's going to lead us into the chicane of death. So coming down the straightaway here, we are still right behind the slipstream of the Brazilian, but we're going to take it very, very easy, as we do have cold tires and we don't want to accidentally push the car too much where we end up going off into the wall, as a couple of guys ahead of us actually hit the wall there. And we get through it cleanly, and so do the guys ahead of us and behind us, as the car behind us is actually gaining really good time on us. He's on the inside of us. We're going to give him the space as we go very, very wide coming out of this left-hander here. And the Audi right on the inside of us is now going side by side with us as we're going down the straightaway, leading us into the S section. So coming to the S section, we're about to go 3 wide here, but one of the cars actually backs out of there. A very smart move there, as going 3 wide into this S section is really not a good case scenario, as we are coming down into this left-hander here. Coming to the left-hander, we're still going single file as the car right behind us actually backs out right there, but he's trying to make a move onto the outside now, so we're going to head into the 2 left-handers. Keeping our position on the inside, we're going to defend as best as we can as we break right after the 100-meter board, and we are able to hold ourselves off here. As you can see behind us, they're going 2 wide on the radar, and we are able to hold off 6th place as we are now jumping into the last chicane. So coming down this short little straightaway right ahead of us, the Brazilians trying to make a move around the green car ahead of us, and we go into the chicane single file here for us, and actually a car ahead of us, I believe is the Canadian, goes a little bit wide, and you can see the green car is now making a move onto the outside, as the McLaren is going to try to follow the blue Canadian on the inside here. That's going to lead into the outside basically when we hit to the first right-hander. But coming down the straightaway here, we're in the slipstream of the Brazilian and seeing if we could catch up to the guys ahead of us as we jump into lap number 2. Coming to turn number 2 here, the Canadian actually outbrakes himself, goes a little bit wide, and the Americans try to make a move onto the inside, as we are trying to make a move onto the inside of the McLaren, but the McLaren is going to get a better exit than us and a better straight line speed, so we're going to jump right behind him and dive right behind him and follow him down the straightaway, leading us into chicane. So staying right behind the McLaren here, we give him a little bit of a bump to help him up into speed, but we are still going to go single file here, as you do not want to go double file going into the chicane of death. And we are still right behind the Brazilian here as we come into this awkward left-hander, braking very, very late, almost making contact with the McLaren, but we're able to woe down here as we are going side by side coming out of this. But the green car goes back onto the racetrack, clips the McLaren. We got to take evasive action, and that's going to affect our exit speed here, as we are now getting pressure from the car behind, but we are going to go single file now as we head into the S section. So we are a little bit safe for now as they come into the X section. So coming to turn number 3 here, is still ahead of us. They're still fighting as they almost go 3 wide. Then McLaren makes contact with the green car, and the green car outbrakes himself because of that, as he did get forced out wide, and he tries to get back onto the racetrack, and we're going to capitalize on that. I don't know if that's a mistake, but the Brazilian hit the green car, but we're still right behind the 2 cars right ahead of us, as the cars behind us are going 2 wide too. And the Brazilian backs out of the move right there, as again, you do not want to go double wide going into this chicane of death. But the Canadian and the Brazilian both make contact with the wall. The Brazilian makes contact with the Canadian. They both go into the wall again, and we're going to try to go around both these guys as we're making a move onto the outside of the McLaren. And we actually get hit by the McLaren, and we are going to lose 3 or 4 positions. We're trying to get back onto the track, and we are now back in 8th place after being in 5th place going into that left-hander. So oh man, really bad turn of events there for us, as we're going to go into the replay here. The green car just outbrakes himself, hits us, and then hits the Brazilian. The Brazilian goes out wide because of that contact, and we get the short end of the stick there, as we are now in 8th place and have to fight our way back up to the front as we are now coming to the S section. So coming to the S section, we're just taking a normal line, and the Audi right behind us just decides to force himself low, and he bumps us out of the way, but he gets a 2-second penalty as he goes a little bit wide. So let's see what happened here. We're just taking a normal racing line. He just dives right into the inside. Not sure how he thought that was going to be an easy move, but he decided to do that move, and he gets a 2-second penalty because of that. And we're going to try to dive into the inside here as we're coming to this left-hander. So having to pass the Audi, since he did that move on us, we are now back into 8th place as the 2 cars behind us are now fighting side by side. And hopefully when we get to the penalty zone, they don't try to make an overtake on us as we head to the chicane. So coming to the chicane here, the car with the 2-second penalty is still right behind us as he's going to have to serve his penalty coming down to the penalty zone. And we're coming out right ahead of him. As we pass the penalty zone, you can see he has to serve it there. And we are able to secure our 8th place. So jumping now into lap number 4, we're right behind the Canadian here as we enter chicane of death. And the cars ahead of us make contact as we make a little bit of contact with the wall too, but it doesn't affect us too much as we are now heading to the awkward left-hander, staying right behind the Canadian. We are trying to make a move on to the inside. The Canadian brakes very, very late, and we're able to do so, but we just don't get a good enough exit out. And the Canadian is able to hold his position as he got a way better exit coming out of that corner, and he's able to hold his speed as we are now coming down to the S section of the racetrack. So staying right behind the Canadian, we're going to go single file here as we can still see 3rd place ahead of us as they're still fighting for the position right in front of us. So as long as they are fighting with each other, we should be able to catch up there as we're actually getting a huge momentum on the Canadian. We move on to the inside. We're on the grass here, and we are able to force our way into the inside of the Canadian without any contact, and we are able to make the overtake now as we come into the left-hander. A very, very daring move, but the Canadian tries to make a cutback here as we're going to give him the inside. Going side by side into his left kink, the Canadian's able to re-overtake 7th place, and we are now focusing again on the Canadian to try to make an overtake as we head into chicane, but we're just a little too far back as there's a car right ahead of us that's to serve a penalty. I believe it's the green car ahead of us, so we'll see what happens here. So coming out of that corner, the Canadian gets a really bad exit here, so we're going to make a move onto the inside here, and we're able to make the overtake now on 7th place. As you can see right behind us, they're going double wide, and we're following now the Brazilian as we head into turn number 1 and turn number 2. So following the Brazilian to turn number 1, we are going to brake as late as we can to try to catch up to him on turn number 2, but the Brazilian is able to hold his position here, and we are able to hold our position from the 8th place car behind us, and we are now going to go single file as we head into the chicane of death. So jumping a little more forward into the lap now, still right behind the Brazilian as we head into the S section, and we're just following him now as we're just biding our time. As you can see, still they're fighting for 3rd place ahead of us, so we just have to be patient here as the Brazilian goes very, very wide, goes into the grass. We try to make a move onto the inside, but he shuts the door on us, and we kind of just forced the issue there as we probably should have gone to the outside as there really wasn't a gap there, but we lose a position because of that contact to the American in 7th place, and now we are demoted into 8th place as that little mistake from us actually cost us dearly. So jumping to the final chicane as we fast forward here, you can see they're still going side by side as we have been in a tight race for basically the entire race now, and we are trying to make a move on the outside here of the Lambo ahead of us, and we're trying to do so as we come into turn number 2, and we are holding off onto the outside, but the Huracan's able to hold his position there as he is now fighting with 6th place, but gonna fall back in line as we are all going single filed as we head into chicane of death. So very, 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 very awesome racing as we are now going into chicane of death again, and we all go single file here as again don't want to go double wide. I don't know how many times I said that in this video, but you don't want to go double wide into the chicane of death as we're just following them now as we enter the awkward left-hander. So jumping a little forward into the race now, or into the lap, you can see the Brazilian goes a little bit wide as we are now having a 3rd to 8th place battle for 3rd place, and we're trying to catch up to the Huracan right here and make a move on to the inside as we're now going on to the inside of the chicane of death, or not the chicane of death, but the last chicane. Brake very, very late, make a little bit of contact with the McLaren. That was our fault there as we are now on the outside of the chicane as the white Audi is able to make the overtake back on us as we come down into the front straightaway. So coming down to the front straightaway now, we are getting pressured by the Huracan behind us, but he actually falls back in line, and we are going single file again as we head into turn number 1 and to turn number 2, staying right behind the Audi now ahead of us. Coming to turn number 2, we're braking as best as we can to avoid trying to make any mistakes here, and you can see the Brazilian goes a little bit wide as the Audi's making contact with the Brazilian, and he falls back in line there as he clips the grass a little bit, but we can see the Huracan now is on the outside, or in the inside of us now, and we're going side by side as we head into the chicane of death, but I think he's going to back out of here. Yes, he is, as we go single file again into the chicane of death And there's a car actually that hits the wall, and he is taken out there. So that's a free position for us as we are now promoted into 6th place. Not sure what happened there. I think he just misjudged everything as we break as late as we can, make a little bit of contact with the American ahead of us, and that's actually going to hurt us as the Huracan is able to make the overtake on us as we were missed our braking zone right there, and we made contact with the American. Luckily, we didn't take him out, but we did lose a position because of that as we are now demoted back into 7th place as we head into the S section. So jumping up a little further into lap number 7, you can see they're still going side by side as it's still a position or a fight for 3rd position as we are now on the outside of the white Audi to the left of us, and we're just trying to stay on the slipstream of the Huracan, but we can't push the Audi out wide as he's following the Huracan slipstream, and that's going to hurt us. As you can see now, 8th and 9th are trying to catch up to us, and the Mexican's right behind us as he's forcing the car right behind us to the inside, breaking as late as we can onto this corner. We actually get a little tap from behind from the Mexican, and we get bumped out to the white Audi to the outside, and he actually hits us again coming out of that second corner. Let's see what happened here. He just brakes very, very late, lets go of the brakes, hits us out of the way, and then forces himself in front of us. He hits me again, and he is able to overtake both of us there because of that little bump, and we are demoted back into 8th place as we are now getting pressured by the 9th place car. And as we go into the chicane of death, so going side by side now, what's going to happen here? One of us is going to have to give, and luckily the Canadian backs out of the move there as we all go into the chicane of death, single file and safely, and we're going to try to catch up now to the cars ahead of us so we can try to get back up into 3rd place. So the Mexican actually dives down, forces American low, and hits him into the wall, and that's going to help us, but we actually make contact with the American as we just gained too much exit speed there, and we had nowhere to go, so we just hit the American behind, and actually helps him out as we go into the S section here. So coming to the S section, you see that the cars are now very much ahead of us as we are about 5 to 6 car lengths away from them, but you can see that we're still getting pressure from behind as ahead of us they're still going side by side now as they come into the S section, and that's actually going to hurt the momentum here as we are now going side by side heading into this left-hander, and we are getting overtaken from the outside by the Canadian, and we're going to have to let the position go as we are now swallowed back up into this little group of cars. But in the process of all that, the green car actually got forced onto the inside, crashed into the wall, and we are able to overtake him now as we are still in, well, not still, but promoted into 8th place as we now jump into the final chicane. So coming into the final chicane now, we're going to fast forward here on the straightaway as we jump up into lap number 9, staying right behind the Canadian ahead of us. We're jumping into lap number 9 as we head into the second corner, and you can see that there's a car out onto the outside, and he gets spun out. I think it was the Brazilian in the McLaren, and we are able to make a position there. Let's see what happened. It's the Mexican that just forces the Brazilian out, and he just forces him to the grass, spins him out. I've never seen a move like that happen on one of these races, but geez, he just forced him out wide and takes out the Brazilian, and we are promoted into 7th place because of that as we now come into the chicane of death. So coming to chicane of death, we're still going single file here as we're all still fighting for 3rd position. As actually no, 3rd position is actually gaining some time on 4th. So we are now all fighting for 4th position here as this is the 4-car battle, and the Mexican blocks the inside here as American's trying to do everything he can to get around him, but we make a little bit of contact with the Canadian, and we actually help the Canadian out there as the American and the Canadian are making contact now heading into the S section, or heading down the straightaway at least, it's into the S section. Making contact again, the Canadian, the American swipes right in front of the Canadian, and we are just going to follow them in line here as the American goes very, very wide coming into this left part of the S section. We're making a move on to the outside of the American, and we actually make contact with the American, and we're off into the grass, and we are going to lose our fight right there as we are now demoted into 7th place. Let's see what happened here. Just looks like the American just got onto the curbing a little bit and pushed us out wide, but we were kind of pinched him down too, so not sure if anyone was at fault there. It's just more of a racing incident as we are demoted now into 8th place behind the green American, and now we have to set our sights on the 7th place car and see if we can try to at least overtake him before the end of the race as we are now on the final lap. So on the final lap here, we're coming down the straightaway as we are still right behind the American coming into the chicane of death. He takes a very wide entrance there. He actually misses his apex, and we are able to make the overtake there as he makes a costly mistake, and we capitalize on the mistake. And as we come down to the line, we are going to finish this race in 7th after we were all we were all fighting for the 3rd place position. Very, very crazy race. It was just a lot of hard racing, a lot of crazy racing. I mean, there was some clean racing, but there was also some dirty racing. Everything basically that was that you can have in a race basically happened in this race, and it was really, really fun. It really entertained, but really, really brutal as well. As I felt like if we could have gotten away from the pack, we probably could have finished in third place. As you know, we were just all slowing each other up. As the front two cars were able to just get away from everybody and finish in a really good position. So finishing in 7th place, I mean, we started in 6th. We lost 1 position. It's whatever. I know we could have finished in a lot better position if we would have been tangled up with some of these cars, but we just have to take what we take, and we end up finishing in 7th place. As we are very, very close now to getting back to A+ rating. So if you guys found this video very entertaining, again, please subscribe to the channel, as it really helps out the channel when you guys do so, and leave a like on the video. And again, if you guys found this video entertaining, I hope to see you guys on the next one. Peace out.